See, where's my camera? I think my camera's over here. Yeah, there we go. All right. Can't tell because my screen's so black. I'm on a new iPhone. All right. So, welcome to Xeon Talks. I want to explain something for everybody who might be confused on this. Okay, Judaism is not Christianity. So Jews are not Christians. Christians are not Jews. And within Orthodox Judaism, you also have the Gentile rules. You have the B'nai Noach and all of their rules. They call them the Noahide laws. You'll find the beginning of the covenant in Genesis 9:9. So I want to explain this because it's like people don't get it. Almost every time that I get into any debate with an atheist, and I say something, it's like, if they are talking, well, it's only when they're talking about politics. So if it's an atheist and they're talking about politics, they will turn around and start spewing Christian ideas. And I'm like, they know that I'm not a Christian. Okay, so let me explain something. If I want to try to make something make sense to an atheist, okay, and I know they're an atheist, and I don't care if it's political, I don't care if it's something, I don't care if we're arguing about creation or whatever, but when I do argue about creation with atheists, I use science. I don't touch religion on those debates. So I don't even care if it's common sense, putting your kid in school, whether it be private schooling, public schooling, or whatever. If I'm trying to tell an atheist, hey, don't eat that food. That food's been left out for 3 days. I can go to the science of how germs get in food, and it's probably going to cause food poisoning. Okay, but I would never go to an atheist and start reciting them the Quran because they are not a Muslim. I would not tell the atheist a bunch of verses I don't know, I can't pronounce the name of the Hindu book, but I wouldn't start speaking to them with Hindu religious ideas because they're not a Hindu. I wouldn't, and although most people have like a positive view of Buddhism, I would not try to explain reason to them by giving them some quote from Buddhism, okay? So I don't understand why so many people, and it's not just atheists, it's Christians too, but it's primarily atheists on political topics. They always quote Christian garbage to me as if it's going to change my mind. So let me give you a reference. It's really bad on TikTok. Go to TikTok. Actually, don't go to TikTok. That place is like the evil and immorality and the fascism that TikTok is by itself is insane. There's like 10 million words you cannot even say over there. I've been warned and had comments removed for saying things like President Trump. Literally, the word President Trump. I've had comments removed for saying the phrase, let's go. How is that upsetting? What else did I have? Multiple times, if you hashtag MAGA for any reason, if you put like hashtag MAGA or hashtag MAGA for life, they will flag you. The fascism over there where they're silencing people and you don't have freedom of speech and they block and shut you down is insane. So that's why TikTok is heavily liberal. That's why when you go over there, all you see is the abnormal people, the people who are 15, 20% of this nation over there, and you almost never see anybody who I would consider normal. You almost never see anybody conservative over there. And when you do, their profiles are constantly attacked, even when they're putting out just positive messages. But I had an atheist, and I've had this happen to me many times, who was trying, and I've had Christians do it too, okay? But I don't understand why. I understand why Christians would do it, because they already got this mindset where they think that they are above the law and everybody. So you will find Christians spitting out Christian verses to atheists and to Muslims and to Buddhists as if it, as if it matters, and as if what they said is a debate platform and something that the other person would accept. But I will never comprehend why atheists do it, because atheists openly claim that they do not follow any religion. Yet the number one thing that all the atheists are saying over there, when you talk about the immigration law-breaking people, they will constantly recite to you, love your neighbor, but they are not using the Leviticus version. They use another version that is illegal and unkosher, if you catch my drift. And I'm like, whoa. So let me explain this, okay? The rules of Christianity do not matter to me. I am not a Christian. Just like the rules of Christianity would not matter to an atheist. Just like the rules of Islam would not matter to a Christian or to an atheist. I have never in my life tried to spew out any religious verse to make a point to somebody who is not in that religion. The only time that you see me spitting out something like that is when I'm using their religion against them and I know that they follow that religion, okay? So it makes sense for an atheist to bring up this stuff to a Christian and using Christian verses, and the atheist, their platform is not that they should be following Christianity. Their platform and their intent is that these people have a rule and you bring it up in a verse and they don't follow it and they're a hypocrite. So I understand that part. But when the atheist or whoever, when they know that you are not of that religion, why in the hell would you bring up that religion? It doesn't make sense. It really doesn't. And I know I'm ranting, but I'm just saying this literally in the last week happened to me probably around 75 times by 75 different people. And they were all atheists. And I'm like, you guys are atheists and you're throwing religious doctrine at me and religious verses that person who you are quoting did not even get it right. He broke that law that he is saying. And then you expect me to just give up everything and be like, oh, you got a point. Love thy neighbor does not mean what you think it means, okay? It does not. It is point blank explained in Judaism. So Noahides, people like me, or B'nai Noach, or B'nai Noahide, or B'nai Noah, or whatever they want to go by, okay? There's multiple names and terms that they can use. Noahides and Jews do not give a damn about you bringing up love thy neighbor because they already know all of the rules. If you do not know the laws and the rules and the stories of Tuma and reporting your neighbor and checking your neighbor out and being there to both uplift your neighbor and rebuke your neighbor, you cannot talk about love your neighbor. If you do not know all of the commentary and all of the overwhelming principles to love your neighbor, you cannot talk about love your neighbor. And that's exactly why they run to the Christian repeated part where J-Man says love your neighbor, and then he messes it all up and he makes up stuff and he goes against Torah. Jews and Christians are not the same people. They don't have the same rules. And Noahides would fall under the category of those who are following Orthodox Judaism, because there's even commentary that literally says that even if you can find somebody who is doing the Noahide laws, if they are only doing them for like common sense or for science, then they don't get the reward for the intent, because the intent must be that they understand it comes from God. Therefore, who is teaching it? Who is teaching the Noahide laws? The Jews have. The Jews have always taught the Noahide laws to the nations and pointed them out. So you don't go to a Gentile to learn the Noahide laws. You go to a rabbi. You don't go to, your local church, Pastor Steve, to go learn the Noahide laws. You go to an Orthodox Jewish rabbi to go learn these laws. So Noahideism or Noahides or whatever you want to call it, it is not a separate religion. It is literally part of the Torah. It is considered Orthodox Judaism. but they have to explain that they're not a Jew. So a Noahide would say, if somebody says, well, what religion do you follow? A Noahide would say, I am a Noahide, I'm a B'nai Noach, or whatever they'd say. And then they have to say, I am not a Jew, but I follow Orthodox Judaism. What does that mean? It means that they're not following the 613 laws. They're following Orthodox Judaism because Orthodox Judaism, the rules are that if you are a Jew, you got the 613 laws, and they're not a Jew. But if you are a Gentile, you are following the 7 category laws, and they are not 7 specific laws, they are category laws. Laws within laws within laws. So, and you got to be careful. You can't say, oh, well, I follow Orthodox Judaism, and then period. You can't end the sentence. You have to say, I follow Orthodox Judaism, but I am a B'nai Noach, or but I am a Noahide. Or you can say, but I'm not a Jew. Okay? If they want to ask a question, that's fine. They don't understand something, okay, you explain it. But I do not understand why so many of these atheists, and they're on TikTok, when they're talking about political stuff and they're doing evil and they're allowing immorality, and then they want to say, oh, you're being immoral because you support ICE, or you support the Constitution of the United States, or you support the laws of the land, therefore you're evil. And when you ask them, how am I evil? And then they start spitting out Christian verses. Why the hell would they do that when the person's not a Christian? I don't know. I'm telling you, I've had around 75 different people say this to me, and they knew I'm not a Christian. It makes no sense. But love thy neighbor has rules to it, okay? If you don't understand the Tuma and the stories of Tuma and the things going on with your neighbors there, how can you talk about love your neighbor? You don't know what love is. You don't know who the neighbor is. If you read it in Hebrew, your eyes will open real quick, because neighbor is not the proper word to be used. It's your people. Your people is repeated multiple times, and that's how you'd say it. It's not love your neighbor. It would technically be love your people. Now, that's not to say that Jews can mistreat Gentiles, because they're not allowed to do that. That's a separate rule. How you treat a Jew is separate from how you treat a Gentile. How you talk if you are Jewish, okay? If you're Jewish, you are not even allowed to answer certain questions if you're in a room full of Noahides, or you're in a room full of Gentiles, okay, that aren't. If you're in a room full of Jews, a Orthodox rabbi who understands how to speak, how to teach, will look around and scan the room, and they'll give a Jewish answer to a room full of Jews. But in front of Noahides or Gentiles, they will give a Gentile answer. And this is part of halakha. It is part of how they're supposed to teach. It's not that they're trying to keep secrets. It's not. It's how you treat people. It's laws of speech. It's all kinds of things. But I will never understand, because I asked one of the atheists after they said, I was like, you know, I'm not a Christian. Why are you giving me Christian verses? I will never understand why they do that. I don't, and it's so many of them over there. It's crazy. I understand why they would do it to a Christian, because they're like, aha, I got you. But even the Christians, they don't follow their own laws. They don't follow their own rules. Most of them don't even know their own book. Like, you can find Christians all day long that argue about Trinity versus one God, when their book clearly only has one answer to that question. I don't follow their book. You can find Christians who attack Paul, and they say they don't want anything to do with Paul, but then they cling to the rest of the books. And they say, well, yeah, Paul misunderstood something, or Paul twisted it, blah, blah. Okay, well, then why are you reading that book? Why would you be if your holy book has even one word in there that you know is not proper, why would you follow that holy book in that religion? It makes no sense. You can also find Christians that are growing in number that will argue and claim that their J-man never claimed to be deity, and that is completely false. Their book has around 10 different references in the Gospels alone that state that he is calling himself deity in flesh, which is insane. Now, I don't follow any of that, but I understand if I was debating a Christian and I say something about how the Trinity is false, and they say, yeah, I know it is, my next question is going to be, why are you a Christian? And then I am allowed to bring up their own book, their own verses, their own religion, and throw it in their face and be like, so this is what your religion says, and you don't even follow your religion, but you follow that religion. Like, make it make sense. Okay, that makes sense. And so it would be like if you found a Jew or a Noahide doing something that broke their laws, then if they are a Christian or an atheist and they understand, keyword understand, if they understand these laws and they're like, aha, oh, you're stealing, there's business laws, there's laws of business and you're stealing, then, okay, I understand that they would bring that up. But again, 100% of the time when they do bring up things like that, it's misunderstood. They don't know what they're talking about. But I would understand from that point. You know what I mean? Like, I would understand. So why do so many people just not read their own book? Like, I don't get it. But I don't get why you would use another religious book's text and claims against somebody who does not follow that religion. And, in case people are confused, J-Man is not the one who came up with the law of love your neighbor. He repeated that, and then he trashed it. He added new laws to it. He ignored laws of it, and he went sideways with it. And that's what he did with everything. Every single text that he brings up, well, not text, but every single law that he brings up, he butchers it. He does that in Matthew chapter 5. He does it on the Sermon on the Mount. He literally tells people, hey, I didn't come to dismantle the law. I didn't come to change the law. I came to fulfill the law and teach you the law. And then his next words is him changing the laws of murder. He changes the laws of what we would call thought police or thought sins. There's only so many sins that are thought. There's only so many. So like an example would be, if you are thinking about stealing something because you're suffering or you don't have money or whatever, and you're thinking, oh man, I need to go steal something, and then you do not steal it, you are not guilty of that sin. What has happened is you were battling the Yetzir Hara, and it is a battle of Mr. Yetzer, okay? It's the good and the evil inclination. But there are some sins that are thought laws. And one of them would be lusting after your neighbor's possessions, so jealousy. Lusting after your neighbor's wife, wanting her wife. That's still a form of jealousy. And people today don't even know what jealousy is. Like, they don't. So people today are so backwards and so ignorant that they think that when they hear about somebody's wife getting mad at her husband because he was surrounded by girls that were flirting with him and he flirted back, or he complimented her back in a way that was flirty, that when his wife gets mad, she's jealous. That is not the definition of jealous. Jealous is that you want something that is somebody else's or already has loyalty to somebody else. Okay? It's crazy how upside down the world is. They change. See, that's what evil does. They change the definition of words. It's like the word shallow. If you ask the majority of people who are under the age of 40 what the word shallow means, they cannot tell you. Shallow, the definition, has always meant that this person does not have good morals, and they do not have a good understanding of a code of honor. That, in other words, they barely have morality. They barely have a code of honor. So you got goofballs today that'll say, well, that was a shallow insult. That was a shallow comment. When your comment was literally righteous and talking about following morals, the immoral will say, that's shallow. That's not what it means. It's like, lady, what are you talking about? You are the one doing the shallow thing. Hello? So that's what evil does. Evil will often, lately in these generations, evil is reconstructing the definition of words. That's why you've got the left. They cannot tell you what racism means. Now they're changing the word discrimination, because most people will say, no, racism is when you discriminate against anybody for the reason specifically of their skin color, okay? Or you could say, or their culture. And so now today they're trying to change the definition of the word discrimination. Like, that's what they do. They change the word, like in abortion tactics, they change the word of multiple words in order to try to make their point, and they're not making a point. The word fetus does not mean clump of cells. It literally means child and offspring. That's what it means. So the same people that are like, oh, a fetus is just, a clump of cells, and just saying that, they're stupid, because they're literally saying a child and your offspring is a clump of cells, because that's what fetus means. So now they're trying to change the definition of fetus. But it's absolutely crazy that someone is not in a specific religion, and you use that specific religion to try to make a point. Whether you're talking about politics, whether you're talking about religion, whether you're talking about science. And I see atheists do it all the time. I don't understand it. I don't comprehend it. And every single time I've made bets with people, every single time that I've ever debated an atheist, I have bet people off to the side this one thing. I'm going to tell you the secret. I tell everybody, I will not once bring up religion. I will not argue a religious point when I'm speaking to an atheist on creation or on evolution or on science. But they will bring it up, and I've won that bet every single time. I've probably debated probably 300 atheists maybe in the past 20 some years at least, and it's every time they bring it up. They will literally, when I am using science to destroy the theory, and it is a theory, it's not an experiment, it's not a law, the theory of fossil records and the way they use layers of dirt and rock to identify fossils, but then they also use fossils to identify the layer of dirt and rock, that can be destroyed with science. It's super easy. And the moment they get mad, oh yeah, well, you believe in a creator, you believe some guy just, made the world. I don't believe in some guy, because God is not a man. And like, they always bring up religion. They always do it. I have won this argument so many times, it's ridiculous. I will always set aside somebody before the debate, and I'll have them in the crowd or listening in the chat, and I will tell them, watch, I will not bring up religion or any religious-based stuff in this debate. Watch that person do it, and they all do it. Christopher Stitchin, whenever he was alive, I watched a lot of his debates, and that's all he did. And the majority of his religious attacks was him attacking Christianity, not other religions. Even when he went up against Rabbi David Wolpe, which is a rabbi that they were friends. They were legitimate friends, but they disagreed on religion and evolution and creationism. But they were friends. They were legit friends. And Rabbi David Wolpe spoke very highly of Christopher. And yet Christopher constantly brought up religion. And, although he's a smart guy, but it's not like he's somebody that I would even consider a master in debating for atheists. It's not like this guy had like 170 IQ or you know what I mean. Like he understood things. He was like a normal guy to me, and he just was on the debate forum and debating a lot. And he wrote books, and other atheists clung to him because he was famous. And I understand that, because everybody does that. But I just don't get why atheists do these things. If you don't believe in God, why are you arguing about God in a subject where religion shouldn't be brought up in the debate? If you don't believe in God, why is it that when you're arguing political stuff with me and others, you run to verses and religions that have a deity? Like, I can't comprehend it. And again, it'd be one thing if they understood Jewish law and they find a Jew who's like doing something like they're online during Shabbat, okay? And an atheist goes, Well, you don't even follow Judaism and you're a Jew. You're literally online right now and it's Shabbat. I get that part. Then yeah, call them out. I don't care. Call them out. At that point, I'd root for the atheist. But I do not get this obsession with saying that you don't believe in a God, you don't follow any religions, claiming all religions are wrong and evil, and then you cannot get religion out of your head. And when you are in the middle of any debate, you can't stop talking about it. I don't get it. But this is my rant about atheists constantly bringing up religion and throwing religion on people who are not even of that religion. It happens a lot, guys. It really does. And I do not get it. I don't comprehend it. I would never, if somebody's a Muslim and I'm arguing with them about something, I don't care if it's politics, I don't care if it's science, I don't care if I'm arguing with them about how to drive down the road, okay? And I'm pointing out, this is the speed limit, drive on this side of the road and go this speed limit. Why in the hell would I ever bring up a Hindu reference point to them to try to make sense to them when they're not a Hindu? It makes no sense. But they do it to Christians, they do it to Muslims, they do it to Jews, they do it to Noahides all the time. They will bring up other references that you don't follow and shove it in your face. I don't get it. Somebody once told me that every single atheist is only arguing with Christianity, and I've never gotten that out of my head because it's true. It's 100% true. Like, one of the first things they run to is, well, you say that your God is all good and doesn't do evil and blah, 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 and he you know, and they think that evil comes from the Satan, and they will say that, and then they say, but how can there be evil in the world? Your God must be evil, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I'm not a Christian, dude. I don't believe any of that. What the hell are you talking about? Like, Satan has no power. He has a job. There's a difference. He's doing his job. He does not own the world. He does not control the governments. He doesn't control a single human being on the planet. All right? He doesn't have a remote control to you. Okay? His job as an angel is to test you. That's all through Judaism. So when you're bringing up ideas of Satan being a deity with power, why would you do it to a Noahide or a Jew? And they do it all the time. It makes no sense. They're arguing against Christianity. They're not arguing against anybody else. Christopher Stitchens, also, since I was talking about him, in one of his last debates with Rabbi David Wolpe, he said a very famous line. He said, I am an atheist and I could believe in a deity or a deity system if that religion admitted that the deity was more human or like humans and just did whatever they wanted. And I was blown away by that. And he literally uses the Greek Empire theology and brings up Mount Olympus and the sins of Zeus and this and that. And he literally says, if I was living in Greece, and this was the main religion, I could comprehend that and it would make sense in my worldview. Because then he literally says, I can point to good and evil in the world, and if your deities were doing both good and evil, then I could comprehend that. But then he argues with Christians all day long, and they literally have a deity of evil. They literally have three other deities of what they claim is good, which we know it's not good. All of their deities are pure evil. Their Father, their Son, and their Holy Toast are pure evil, and anybody who has studied Christianity knows that. But it's like, dude, somebody once told me this, and they were like, yeah, every atheist is only arguing with Christianity. And it's true. I've never gotten it out of my head. Anyways, that was my rant. Thank you for watching Xeon Talks. Like, share, and subscribe.